Happy Halloween, everyone. Today we're going to be bringing you the top 5 rarest ball pythons to have ever existed. Or do they exist? We'll be discussing that and having a little bit of fun along the way.
Our final story for the night. Investigations into the disappearance of Ryan Stillmacher has been postponed indefinitely by the Valparaiso Police Department, officially confirmed this afternoon. Ryan went missing last year on Halloween night and has not been heard from since. Valpo police cite lack of evidence, but some believe foul play was involved. From the Indiana News Network, I'm Xavier, signing off.
Starting off at number 5, an appropriately creepy and weird animal for Halloween, the two-headed ball python. Now, unfortunately, this video is in another language, but from doing my research on this, I'm gonna butcher this probably, but this was produced by Stefan Broghammer, and it was sold to a reptile zoo in Switzerland, where it survived for a little more than a year. They named them appropriately Monty and Python. As you can see from this video, if they were faking this, this would be a very good fake. The x-ray here shows that they have 2 esophaguses that go down to a stomach. They were both able to eat and digest food. This animal would share a lot of organs, but obviously have 2 different brains. Now, with that being said, is this real? Yes. It's very real. I've never seen one personally, but I've seen plenty of pictures. I've seen people who have produced them on Facebook. Most of the time, sadly, they do not thrive. They do not make it very long. Theoretically, this animal should live, but typically when there's a deformity that's this drastic, there's something underneath the hood that's also deformed drastically, and that might be a heart or something of that matter, something that it needs, and then it just dies. And that's usually the case that I hear, sadly. So it does sound like this one eventually did pass away, living for a little bit more than a year, which is pretty significant. I haven't heard of any two-headed ball pythons living longer than that. The only other two-headed snake, in fact, I've heard living longer than that would be Brian Barczyk's California king snake, which I think has been around for a fairly decent amount of time. I was able to actually witness that two-headed king snake in person when I visited the Reptarium in August this year. Obviously, you probably shouldn't breed it. It's not going to pass it on, and even if it did, most of them would die. It'd be kind of an irresponsible thing to do if you could. So the verdict is in. This one is true. It does exist.
Have you redo the intros, because I think the counting got messed up at some point.
Like for all of them?
Yeah, for all of them. But also, I just had a completely random thought. I got the remote working for the gimbal, so when I'm gone...
At number 4 would be the world famous Stormtrooper. Stormtrooper has a crazy history to it. It was born looking one way and started to drastically change. This Stormtrooper started off looking kind of like a very beautiful example of Xanthic, with deep blacks and bright clean white, but over time just got more and more black. Now, could this be because of a weird paradox? I've never heard of a paradox that was over time, but at the time, JD Constrictors, who produced the Stormtrooper, did not know what exactly was in it, because 2 males could have sired this one, and it didn't make much sense as to what this was and what he was seeing. Now, let me be clear here. The Stormtrooper is not a morph. It is the name of one single snake. You can actually see a picture of it here when it was much younger. Very beautiful, distinct, bright whites and very dark, bold blacks. It was a crazy, beautiful animal, and you see how much it has changed over over the years. You can see kind of like a midway picture here where these darks have started to just bleed in. You see the big time difference in the head too, versus what you have here where the dark pigments have started to massively overtake this snake. I believe the reason that it is nicknamed Stormtrooper is because of the white colors and the fact that it started to turn to the dark side. With each shed, more and more dark colors started to come in. You can see they even jokingly put it up here for 50K. I believe that it was never actually for sale. But is the Stormtrooper real? Well, these pictures seem very real, and if I'm to be believed, yes, because this is the one snake on this list that I have seen with my own eyes. JD Constriction is at every single Tinley. Now, he does not bring the Stormtrooper lately, and I haven't heard of an update lately on if this was something that they could reproduce. It's been quite some time, but I have laid eyes on the Stormtrooper myself. It is very much real. The next snake on our list isn't really just one snake at all. It's actually a morph of snakes, and that would be the Super Mandarin, or Super NR Mandarin is what I see it listed at a lot. Now, Super Mandarin is a co-dominant or incomplete dominant, and it is 2 copies of the Mandarin gene put together, creating a beautiful snake that is very orange and very ghostly. By itself, Mandarin seems to just add a little tinge of orange, but when you get the super form together, you get this crazy animal that just doesn't seem to add up. And being a super, it would be a very attractive project to get into because every single one that you bred would at least pass on 1 copy of the Mandarin gene. And with just 1 copy of the gene that looks just a little bit more orange, it really reminds you of what Yellow Belly can kind of do when you get Yellow Belly and maybe one of its allelic combos, or 2 copies of Yellow Belly creates an Ivory, which is drastic. So let's get right into it. Is it real? Well, yes, this snake is clearly real, but it's not just Super Mandarin. This is actually the Super Mandarin Hypo. Hypo has kind of been married into the Super Mandarins for quite some time, and it created a large debate. What's the difference between a Mandarin Hypo, and a Super Mandarin Hypo? Well, it's been decoded by a few people, including Canova, that this animal that we all thought was just Super Mandarin is actually Super Mandarin Hypo. That doesn't take away the beauty of it. It's just, this is not just Super Mandarin. Is it still a project worth investing in? Well, everyone went crazy about the way that looked. So yeah, it's just gonna be a little bit more to get that hypo into it, obviously. If you still liked the way that looked though, and you wanna see it in more projects, which I certainly do, there's nothing taking away from that. It's just there's more to it. It now has a recessive layered on top of it that you have to consider. So yes, real, but not quite.
I got the remote working for the gimbal, so when I'm gone and you need to film the Scary Snakes video, you'll be able to remotely control the thing so that way it can do what you need it to do.
At number 2 would be the elusive red ball python. Now, we've covered this in some of our videos, and if we could ever potentially reach it, but supposedly we already have it. I mean, you can clearly see it here. That is a red ball python. Yes, there are quite a bit of oranges coming in there, some yellows on the belly, but right here in the mid of the snake, that is red. And if a red ball python does exist, this would be easily the most expensive snake in the world. Not even talking about ball pythons here. This would eclipse all reptiles, I would imagine. But is it real? No. No, this snake is a scam, in fact. This is not the person who scammed it, but in fact they are, I believe they might be the person who got scammed. They or whoever did buy it was told that this was the animal that they had produced, whoever the scammer was had produced, and that they now had hets of that animal. So when they sold those hets, they sold them for a considerable amount of money. Whoever had purchased them basically purchased them thinking that these were the hets. They are not. There was no het red or whatever it was supposedly called. Now, unfortunately, there can be scams. For the most part, you're good, but you need to be careful. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. And I'm not even talking about this specifically, because you see here how they could have recreated this fake scam using some simple watercoloring. We actually showed it in our video on how you could possibly create a red ball python, how easy it is to Photoshop any color you really want these days. And with the advent of AI even, that's even more crazy. But The red ball python does not exist. Maybe someday. And at number 1 would be the craziest snake ever, and that would be Skittles. Skittles is an albino pied paradox, or chimera. We've discussed this on our channel as well as highlighted many of the other different kinds of paradoxes, but this is probably the most intense one ever. One eye is black, one eye is red, so half of this snake is a normal piebald, and the other half is an albino. You have clashes of albino and regular piebald fighting to express itself as you go down this snake. Now remember, albinism is supposed to strip all of the dark pigment of a snake. Look around its neck here. You can see the albinism underneath the surface, but then you also see the darker pigments in it. This is the only instance of where you're going to see this, really. It literally broke the rules of what it was supposed to do, and I find that fascinating. So you have that. You have it even on the head, and then you have, oh wait, I'm an albino now. Oh, never mind, I'm back to this weird version of a piebald, which is mostly piebald, and then oh no, I'm an albino again. Now I'm pied. Now I'm an albino. Now I'm pied. You get the picture. This snake is insane. But is this snake real? Yes, it is real. This snake has a legacy that it follows it. You can find babies of this snake just by typing in Skittles online. They call it the Skittles line. And even though paradox is not supposed to be something that can be passed on genetically, a higher than normal portion of Skittles line babies express some paradox. Now that's not to say a majority, I'm just saying more than you normally get. Now nothing has ever gotten as close as the original godmother here. In my opinion, and in the opinion of many others, nothing quite holds a candle to any snake on this planet yet than Skittles, the rarest living ball python on the planet. I hope you enjoyed our Halloween episode. A lot of different, and I get that it's a little controversial, but it's something different.
I really don't think it's a good idea.
But why? It's something that, it's the truth.
Yeah, but no one else is talking about this. This is something far beyond us.
Good.
But if you really want to do it, just go right ahead. I don't think it's gonna end well.
But whatever, we'll talk about it later in post then, so. And for one more honorable mention, this is a little bit controversial, but let me introduce you to the like and subscribe.